Very, very important topic we are talking about today. Definitely going to want something to take notes with. How's your January finishing up, Guy?
We are, hold on. $250 a month. No, we're less than that now. Hold on, let's hit this out. We are, because I'm gonna have to talk to them tonight. How the hell did I do it? We're like we're $166 away from our goal for the month.
You better just buy some hoodies from yourself.
No, I can't do that. I can't do that. We got an in-house where we got this weekend, so I need a few more kids to sign up. So
There you go. Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and get this party started. So we're talking about numbers today. And, sometimes I think as, martial arts business owners, we look at ourselves as martial artists that own a business. And I think the schools that kind of, go from that good to great and really have built financial success are the ones that really hone in their numbers, and they consider themselves an entrepreneur or a business owner that owns a martial arts school. It's just it's a slightly different type of mindset. And I think especially in the jujitsu world, more so than the karate and taekwondo world, just because jujitsu just hasn't been in the States as long. There's just still a lot of people that are operating their BJJ school as, like a passion project. And I know that when I got really serious about tracking my numbers, one, it can hit you in the gut and it can really hurt. Zoom has this setting now that when I give thumbs up, a little bubble pops up apparently. So one of the stories I used to tell myself is that I wasn't good at math. I was a pretty good student growing up, but if I ever got a B, never got a C on my report card. But if I ever got a B, it was in math. So I had this like story that I kept telling myself that like, oh, you're not good at math. If you're telling yourself that story, I'm here to tell you to stop telling yourself that story. You are great at math. And the cool thing is, you don't need to know some crazy calculus or algebra. You just need to know basic functional math. And if you got a calculator, right? Teachers always used to say, you're not going to be walking around with a calculator. Well, yes, I am. And if it is a little bit harder for you to figure out, you can now use ChatGPT, plug the numbers in, and it'll spit out the answers for you as well. Okay. So we're going over the main marketing and sales KPIs that every school needs to be tracking. Okay. So if you are not tracking these numbers, my goal for you is by the end of the session, you see the importance of tracking them. Okay. Where is my... All right. For those of you that are on, Alex says, morning, everyone. Just came back from the dentist. Yeah, I know. Cool. Glad you made it too. I saw that you said you weren't going to be able to. So hopefully no cavities. Maybe you got a little sticker that said no cavities like they give to the kids. Hi, Rocky. Nice to see you as well. So over the next 45 minutes, I'm going to showcase the top 10 marketing and sales KPIs that you absolutely need to be tracking. Okay. This is not, solely related to your kid's BJJ program. This is, business in general. So I don't want you to think of just tracking this just for your kids' program. It's for your entire business. Okay. We're going to be talking about how much it costs to acquire a customer. If you don't know how much you're paying for every customer that walks in your door, then you're not going to know how much budget you should be putting towards your marketing. We're going to talk about the difference between your billing check and the total amount of money that you're bringing in. Talk about the one metric almost everybody needs to be working on, how you can easily monitor your school's retention rate. You need to know your attrition rate, which is the percentage of people you are losing per month. And on the inverse of that is your retention rate, the percentage of people you are keeping each month. I feel, especially with BJJ, because our art is so freaking hard, our like keeping our students is slightly harder than, the karate school that's offering a black belt after 2 months. Okay. Like we're kind of fighting that uphill battle on retention. Okay. We're going to talk about how you can increase lifetime value, right? Every company needs to get customers. You need to get them to pay you more, and you need to get them to pay you more often. And that means increasing the total value of your students. And then we'll kind of go into some marketing KPIs, 5 of them. Okay. So focus on 5 sales and 5 marketing. Okay. Does anybody play the lotto in here? Yes or no in the chat. I'm curious too, guy. So you participate. Yes or no in the chat. Does anybody play the lotto? Occasionally. I'm one of those people that every time I drive by the billboard, I start like, you see 350 million Powerball, and you start dreaming about like, what it would be like. And then I just tell myself to stop because I don't play, so I can't win. So Melissa says occasionally, Guy says no. All right. So, there's this interesting statistic that says 70% of lotto winners lose or spend all of that money in 5 years or less. I was listening to a Dave Ramsey podcast where this guy, he was 50 years old, and he called in and told Dave that they hit the lotto. They ended up winning like $25 million, and he hadn't told anybody in his family for nearly a year. And the reason why he didn't want anybody to know is because of this statistic that oftentimes, like people will come knocking on your door. And besides like the extravagant spending and not accounting for taxes, these lotto winners are losing it because they just don't know how to handle money properly. If you don't know how to properly handle your martial arts school at a $10,000 gross revenue, you're not going to know how to do it at 50, and you're not going to know how to do it at 100. Okay. And this is why you've got to get your numbers under control. And the training today is going to help you kind of develop these skills, so you can be able to manage more. Okay. One of my favorite quotes, and there's 3 of them here, but gross feeds the ego, net feeds the family. I don't care if your martial arts school makes $100,000 a month if you have $99,000 worth of expenses. Okay. And this is why active count is such a vanity metric, because I know plenty of schools that have 200 students that make more money and are more profitable than schools that have 300 students. Okay. So gross feeds the ego, net is what feeds your family, your profit. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity. It's another quote. And wealth is not the same as income. Okay. So when you track the important numbers in your business, you're going to be making sure that you're feeding your family and you're not feeding your ego. Okay. I say it a lot. If you've ever been on other trainings with me and webinars, that, math is the path. And my ultimate goal for you, because we love jujitsu and we love being martial artists, we have an emotional attachment to our business because it's also our passion. And what I don't want you doing is making emotional decisions. I want you making data-driven decisions. Okay. And when you are tracking the numbers, you're going to have what you need in order to make a data-driven decision. Okay. One example I always like to say is my program director, Anna. She was working, for us. She's been with the company for 6 years now, but this was earlier on in her stages of working at Gracie Pack. And she would make comments like, all of the parents are complaining about us raising the parent night out pricing. And I'd say, Anna, what are the names of the parents? And she'd rattle off maybe 2 or 3 names. Okay. Well, out of 300 families, if 2 or 3 people are complaining about a change, I don't care. That's expected. People don't like change. So instead of her being able to say like all of the parents, I would ask her and I would dig in. I want you to give me the names. And it's not all of the parents, it's 2 to 3, right? If you feel like you're losing all of your students, but you don't know your actual attrition number, because when your student count gets higher, you're automatically gonna lose more students. And it's not the number of students we need to be keeping track of, it's the percentage of students, okay? Because if you have 500 students, you're going to be losing more than the school that has 100. But if we focus on the percentage, then we can make better data-driven decisions, okay? So when you do this, you'll be able to improve your operations, you'll be able to retain more members and get more new members, and you'll be able to pay you more, guys. If you are not making a solid living in your martial arts school, my recommendation would be to read the book Profits First. It's one of like the top 5 books I recommend new business owners to read, because oftentimes you pay yourself the scraps that are left over as opposed to paying yourself first. Okay. So we got to make sure we have a data-driven business. The most common metric that we all love to track, and I'm one of them. I'm not saying I'm not in this, crowd of people, but it's how many members our school has, right? It's the kind of number that people beat their chest over. Oh, I have 400 students, so my school must be better and making more money than the school that has 300 students. So having more members doesn't make you a more profitable school. Now, having more members does give you more at-bats for things like selling retail and private lessons and seminars. But a lot of these schools that, kind of gloat about having 400, 500, 600 students, and you see this especially in the BJJ and MMA world, because most schools are not charging what they should be, is that school that has this really high active count, the value of each student is actually very low. So we'll be talking about student value here in a second, okay? So you can grow your school by getting more customers or making those customers worth more. And that's what we're going to figure out today. So number 1, cost of acquisition, okay? You need to be tracking, this is called your CAC, C-A-C, cost of acquiring a customer. So this number, if you add up everything, if you hired a marketing team, the ad spend, any software that is potentially associated with it. So in this example, let's say you're paying the marketing agency and their software to track everything $500, and you're spending $1,000 on the ad spend, okay? Now, let's say also you printed some rack cards because you wanted to put them in local businesses, and you donated $300 to your partnership in education relationship with the local school. That means you add all of that up, you're spending $2,050 for the month. Now, let's say that month you brought in 20 students. That means the cost to acquire each individual one of those students was $102.50. So now you can say, okay, it's costing me about $100 to acquire a student. Well, next month, I want to have 30 new students. Well, then guess what I need to do? I got to increase the budget. And I know if I'm acquiring at about $102.50, if I want 30 students, then it's going to cost me $3,165 in my marketing. And you can literally reverse engineer how much money you are spending with your marketing, all of it together, because it is an ecosystem. And now you can say, all right, we're going to have a $3,000 marketing budget. And if I'm averaging about $100, that's going to bring in about 30 new students. And most people just do not know how much it's costing them to acquire the customer. And if you know this number, you can figure out what your marketing budget should be. Okay. So if you are not tracking cost of acquisition, guys, all you're doing is adding up all of your marketing expenses and dividing it by the amount of students that you have, that you gain that month. Okay. Guy, anything you want to add to cost of acquisition before we move on to the second one?
No, I think one thing that people get caught up on is like, well, this person who signed up this month was a lead last month. But that's not really the point, right? The point is try to get a snapshot in time for this month, right? Yeah, they may have started on the trial at the end of last month, but they signed up this month, right? So it's just to give you a general idea of, how much money should you be spending and what that cost per acquisition is, so that have a new general idea of how much to spend on a given month.
Yeah, and it's a really great point. So to me, it's when the enrollment happens, right? Whatever the date of the enrollment, that's the month it's going to go into. And I know some people like to get a little bit more granular with this by asking, the student, how did you find out about us, right? Do you guys know what the answer typically people say is, how they found out about you? Most people are going to tell you Google. And the reason is it was probably the last place that they looked to get the phone number to call you. But what if they opted into your Facebook ad? What if they drove by your school and you had feather flags that said martial arts? What if they went into the local pizzeria and found the rat card? Okay. So this is why I'm more of a fan of putting it all together, because oftentimes your students have multiple touch points, right? If they go on your website and you have your Facebook pixel on there, and now they go on Facebook, they're going to see your ad and now they opt in. Well, that was 2 touch points. It wasn't just one. So I'm more of a fan, especially just because now advertising for a martial arts school is very different than 20 or 30 years ago, where really, 20, 30 years ago, you had the yellow pages and, you had like print marketing, and that was basically it. Okay. So this is how you figure out your cost to acquire a customer, a number you absolutely need to know. Is Buddy Week considered a marketing initiative? Yes. So if, really there's not many expenses associated with Buddy Week other than if you were printing out like 4x4s, right? So maybe you spent $30 on printing out 4x4s, you would put that in there. Okay. Great question, Alex. Okay. Next up, and I know Alex had asked this. I just did an entire webinar on this, so I'm not gonna spend too much time. If you guys go to the GrowPro website, growproagency.com, you can watch the webinar. I did it with Mike Metzger, and we did a full hour on this concept that your billing should never be more than 50% of your total gross revenue. So your billing check are your auto drafts, right? The monthly payments that you know are automatically going to come out from their credit card or debit card. So if you know $20,000 is on auto draft, that means that should only be half of the total gross revenue, the total amount of money that your school is bringing in. So if your billing's at 20, your total gross revenue should be 40. If your billing's at 15, your total gross revenue should be 30. If your billing's at 10, your total gross revenue should be 20. And especially for schools that are, month to month, you only have one payment option. Maybe you're not doing special events. You're not doing down payments. You're not offering paid in fulls. You're not pushing retail. You're letting people wear whatever gis they want, whatever rash guards they want. There's no uniform policy. Then that number is going to be very, very difficult to hit. In the webinar, I walked through this revenue expansion blueprint that breaks down 2 schools. A school that's got 100 students that's charging $150 that isn't doing things like down payments, doing paid in fulls. They don't have upgrades. They're not renewing people. It just auto renews. They're not packaging retail. They're not pushing special events. And then a school that does. And it's a very, very eye-opening experience. It's something my mentor, Mr. Metzger, took me to through back in 2015. Because when I came on board with Maya, our billing check was probably about like $28,000, $29,000 a month. And our total revenue was like $32,000 a month. And his lesson was like, if your billing check is almost 30,000, you should be bringing in 60,000. And I was like, there's no way. And he's like, grab a pen and paper, let me walk you through it. So there's a full training that you guys have access to if you really want to learn how to like reverse engineer how to ensure that your tuition is only 50%. But the one thing I want you to remember is there's only 5 ways for you to make money in your school. And those are the 5 profit centers. And if you just decide like, yeah, I'm not going to do 4 of the 5. Okay, well, You're literally saying that you don't want to make more money in your business. And guys, it's okay to make money in your business. Just because it's your passion doesn't mean you shouldn't make a good living from it. Okay. The third number I want you to be tracking is your student value. And what this does is it measures the amount of money your school generates from each member each month. And this is how you have schools that have a lower active count that are actually making more revenue. And it's because they have a higher student value. So the way that you calculate your student value is you divide your monthly revenue by the number of members you have. So let's say your total amount of money that you brought in that month is $20,000. And let's say you have 150 members. That means your student value is $133. My goal for you, kind of like level one foundation, is to get up to 150. That's kind of like the lowest amount that I want your student value to be at. And one of the ways that you can really hurt your student value is by massively discounting programs for multiple family members. Okay. This is one way that can just really tank your student value. And then the other things are just not leveraging the different profit centers, which we'll go over here in a second. The top schools in Maya have over $200 student value. Okay. So reaching that level of, a $200 plus student value means you have to have internal sales and marketing locked in, and you have to be hitting all 5 of the profit centers. So your profit centers are new students. Okay. If you aren't charging some form of a down payment, not a registration fee, but some form of a down payment, the only money you're making from new students is their monthly payment. Okay. The next one is upgrades. If you're choosing not to do upgrades, which, we talked heavily about upgrades in the 6-week challenge that kicked off the Kids BJJ Made Easy program. If you're having retention issues, more than likely, it's probably because you don't have solid upgrade programs in place. Okay. Retail. Any of y'all got kids? Okay. I got a little, he's about to be 4, but he's still 3. And he does soccer at his school. And when we signed him up for soccer and they told us that he needed to buy the soccer uniform, do you think we got upset? Of course not. If he signs up for baseball and they tell me he's got to get cleats and a bat and a bag and a helmet, I'm not going to be upset because I know that there's equipment that he needs to be successful. When you have new students signing up, you need to make sure you have a new student package. And when people are upgrading, they need to be purchasing upgrade packages as well. And this is one of the ways that you can increase the retail. For most of you, your pro shop is just collecting dust. And something you can do on a monthly basis is put together packages, whether it's, buy a hoodie and a beanie or buy a hoodie and a t-shirt, and you slightly discount the amount to create a larger cart value, which brings in more money. But every single month, I would have some form of retail special. And if you have new student packages that are required to be purchased, and you have upgrade packages that are required to be purchased, your retail will increase. Okay. You then have your retention and your renewals. And one of, the things that really hurt a lot of schools during COVID is if they offered month to month, a lot of people just canceled their accounts. And because we offer programs 12 months and 36 months, we didn't get hit as hard. Now, we did make exceptions for families that were in, financial dire situations. But when you have renewals, it allows you to get additional down payments and additional paid in fulls. So if you're auto renewing, even let's say you're doing a 12-month agreement, but then you just auto renew to a month to month, you're losing out on that additional down payment. And then finally, special events. These are your parent night outs. These are your seminars. We also put private lessons inside of special events. So when you look at this list, you got 5 different ways for your school to make money. My question to you is, are you leveraging all 5? And if you're not, more than likely your student value number is not at 150, and it's more than likely definitely not at 200. Guy, I just unpacked a lot. We talked about the cost of acquisition, billing versus total gross revenue, and student value in the 5 profit centers. Anything you want to add to that? And does anybody have any questions so far?
No, the only thing I would add to that is that when you go to plan out your quarter, your year or whatever, is we added a new little section. I don't know if you guys can see it, but up in my left-hand corner is recruit, retain, revenue. And then I've got January through June. Even though I've got it on the calendar, I like writing it out here to see, well, how many do I have on a recruit? How many I have on a retain? How many do I have on a revenue? And then I noticed that in May, we don't have anything on a recruit. So that tells me I need to add something to that month, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a good way to plan ahead and
community
make
event
sure.
or do a buddy week or something like that.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, awesome. All right, guys, not seeing any questions in the chat, so let's go ahead and move on. All right, so number 4, LEG, L-E-G. It's an acronym for length of engagement. And really what this is monitoring is your school's retention rate, okay? So you need to know the percentage of students that are staying and the percentage of students that are quitting. The fitness industry target, which, you know, martial arts is different than fitness, right? Fitness is a much larger pool of people that you can, you know, pull from. It's a, you know, lot more billions of dollar industry, but the fitness industry target is 14 months. So they want the length that people are staying at the gym to be 14 months. And, you know, if you look at the Planet Fitness model, like, it's super cheap. They purposefully try to feed you pizza, so you don't want to work out. They have these ridiculous rules, and they, you know, have a long leg, a length of engagement. So this really ties into the different retention strategies that you have in your business. Guys, you know, there's no better retention strategy than you teaching amazing classes. Okay. And I know we all think we teach absolutely amazing classes, but when's the last time you assessed it? When's the last time you went pen to paper? You guys have access to the instructor training certification course, which gives you the assessment where you can go line by line and actually assess what the kids' classes look like, especially if this is something that you have hired somebody else to do. Okay. So, number 1, you have to be teaching amazing classes, but some other retention strategies that, you know, you want to make sure are checked off. Having a fun and upbeat environment. This really comes down to your culture. Make sure that you're highlighting the successes of your students every time that you can, right? Doing like a student of the day, doing a student of the month, doing, you know, special spiff awards at the end of the year, okay? Your team and their skills are ultimately going to determine how long people stay. Okay. People stay because of the relationships that they build, and just making sure you are consistent in your service, your professionalism, and your treatment. Okay. So inside of this keynote, which you guys are going to get access to, you have this attrition formula. Okay. And the attrition formula will walk you through figuring out what your percentage of lost students is each and every month. And you should be tracking this on a monthly basis, looking at a quarterly basis, and then also at an annual basis. Okay. If you guys need help with doing the attrition formula, we can do this on one of the next calls, but just for time purposes, we're not going to walk through it right now, but you're just going to plug in, you know, the answer to each one of these lines. Okay. Average in the martial arts industry is 5%. So if you have 100 students, if you have an average attrition, you're losing 5 students a month. So if you're only enrolling 4 students, you're going backwards. If you're enrolling 6 students, you're only adding 1 new student a month. Okay. So you got to figure out what this percentage is. And it, you know, it's pretty insane, because if you can just improve your attrition by 1%, if you can go from 5 to 4 or 4 to 3, you're literally adding tens of thousands of dollars to your bottom line. Okay. Alex says, sorry, I missed that part. If a student's done with their 12-month contract, so we call them agreements, not contracts, what's the recommendation? Do another 12 months. Yes. I mean, ideally, you would have upgraded them into your 36-month program. And if you don't feel comfortable doing 36, then, you know, go from 12 to 18 and then 18 to 24 and baby step your way up. That's what I did. When I first started, we were month to month. And I was like, nobody's going to sign a 12 months. So we went to 6 months. And then we got no pushback. Then we went to 12 months. Then we went to 18 months, 24 months, and then finally 36 months specifically for the upgrade programs. Okay. An example of where you might have a renewal for a kid is our tiny ninjas, like the 3 and 4-year-olds. We don't have an upgrade program for them. So if they start with us at 3, by the time they're 4, they're not going to be upgraded into the Little Ninjas elite program. So they would renew. So you'll see renewals specifically with like your tiny ninjas. But, if you have a junior warrior that's been with you for 12 months, ideally they would have upgraded by month 4 or 5. If for some reason they're not seeing the value in the upgrade program, then you would just renew them for another 12 months. Okay. Hopefully that answers your question. All right. Next sales number is the lifetime value. And there's a few different ways that you can figure out lifetime value. You could do your revenue per month times how long they stay. So if you have $180 student value and they are on average staying for 13 months, that means that student is worth $2,340. That's their lifetime value. Now, some businesses, not ours, but some businesses need to do this off a gross profit margin, like specifically like food and restaurants and machinery, because they have hard costs to the products, or I don't mean machinery, I meant retail, because they have hard costs to their products, right? They might have, sold $700 in revenue, but they only made $70 because of the cost of the food and to deliver the service, okay? Most of the CRMs, Guy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Spark will show you the lifetime value of your students. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's up under that new, I forget the term. They have a new stats, ultimate stats. I believe that's what
Okay.
it's called now. You can see it under there.
Yeah, and I also know my studio does it as well. So inside of your CRM, what they're doing is they're just adding up all of the payments that that person had made and then dividing it by the amount of months that they've been with you, okay? And if you know that a student is worth $2,340, then you can really justify the first number we talked about, which is cost of acquisition. So if you know it's costing you $102.50 to acquire a customer, and the average lifetime value of your students is $2,340, my question to you is, are you willing to put $100 in the slot machine in order to get $2,300 out? And the answer is hell yes, I would do that. But if you don't know your lifetime value and you don't know your cost of acquisition, then you might just think that you're spinning your wheels or you're wasting your marketing dollars. Okay. So if your CRM isn't able to provide you this stat, I would reach out to them because they should easily be able to make a report that you can export, because it's literally just the amount of money that that person has paid over the lifetime that they've been with your company. So if people aren't staying 13 months, and I believe the average in the martial arts industry on basic programs is 9 months. So like, if your students are sticking around longer than 9 months on average, then, that means you're doing pretty well. But let's talk about how you can increase the lifetime value. Well, one thing you can do to increase the lifetime value is to increase your price. Okay. I'd love to know in the chat, when's the last time you guys raised your rates? Let me know in the chat. Maybe you did it in January of 2024. Maybe it was sometime last year. When's the last time you increased your rates? Nice, Miss Melissa. Good job. I'm curious, were you nervous about raising your rates? No? Okay, cool. Have you gotten any pushback? No? All right. Adam says last week. Alex says just last month. Second price increase in 45 days. Awesome. I love it. So increasing your price can actually draw allure to your business. Like, oh, that's a little bit more expensive. Like that, it must be better. It must be valuable. And I think, it doesn't look like you guys are struggling with this, but, there are a lot of schools that are not increasing their rates. I don't know about you, but every year I get an email from Hulu and I get an email from Netflix that it's going up. And you know what? It's just kind of the part of doing business nowadays. People just expect it. So I think sometimes we have limiting beliefs that hold us back from increasing our rates. And this is the biggest lever that you can pull in order to increase your lifetime value. Now, the one thing you do need to consider with increasing your basic rates is how is this going to affect increasing your upgrade programs, right? So we do a $25 difference on that option D. So if they're paying $169 a month for our basic program, which is 2 times a week, our upgrade program is going to be $194, our middle elite, and then our master's club program is going to be $219. So if we would have started our basic program at, let's say, $200, that means elite would be $225 and masters would be $250. And depending on certain areas that you live in, you can absolutely charge more, right? We know that states like New York and California, like the San Francisco Bay Area, the LA Bay Area, they can actually demand a higher fee, okay? Melissa, we used to do free women's self-defense classes. Nobody showed, started charging small fee now. Look at that, right? I love that example because that shows that, people got skin in the game and they see value in coming to that class, okay? So that's one way to increase your lifetime value. The next way to increase your lifetime value is ultimately to lower your costs and lower your expenses, okay? If you are not doing this, guys, on a quarterly basis where you're looking through your bank statements, you're looking through, the things that you're spending money on, you need to, all right? Because another way you can increase it is by lowering the cost of what you're spending money with products and services. Number 3 is increase the purchase frequency. So getting people to buy and buy again. And this is ultimately where your profit centers come in and the importance of doing special events. Guy just shared behind him up on that calendar, they've got the 3 R's, and every single month they want something for recruiting, something for retention, and something for revenue. And this is going to ensure that the purchase frequency, Guy said they're doing an in-house tournament this month. Well, that increases the purchase frequency, the amount of times people are swiping their credit card in our business, okay? Number 4 is to upsell people. This is really where the upgrade programs come into play. You're selling the same thing, but a more valuable version of it, okay? Number 5, cross-selling. So this is kind of where like packaging comes together. So if somebody buys a hoodie, could you suggest them buying a beanie? Right? Like, oh, it's cold. For those of you like up in the northern states, it's really cold. So, somebody wants to buy a hoodie to stay warm. Oh, well, how about you add on a beanie? If somebody purchases punch mitts or tie pads or some type of striking target because they want to practice at home, could you cross-sell them a private lesson so you can teach the parents how to hold the punch mitts for the kids? So cross-selling really is just the next natural need that the person's going to have as a result of their first purchasing decision. And then finally, downsells. Maybe somebody's not ready for class, right? We do the introductory evaluation for all students, and maybe there's some behavioral problems. Maybe there's, just issues where they're not ready for the group class. Well, could you downsell private lessons? Maybe you're doing a summer camp and they can't make all 5 days of the week. Well, could you downsell 3 days, right? If they can't make normal class times, what about your summer class times? Because you sell an extended trial in the summer, okay? So these are the 6 different ways that you can increase your LTV. Now, when you know what your lifetime value is and you know the cost to acquire the customer, you can figure out the ratio, okay? And it's kind of crazy because if you just do like a generic Google research, people are saying in a lot of industries that a 3-to-1 lifetime value to cost to acquire a customer is good. Now, if I know it costs me $100 to acquire the customer and the lifetime value is $300, I don't get really excited about that. In our kind of membership-based, service-based business, I'd love to see a 10-to-1. So if it costs you $180 to acquire the customer, I want you to make sure that you're making at least $1,800. And the larger the ratio, the more money in your bank account. So this is how you can take those 2 different numbers of the lifetime value of what your students are worth and the cost of acquisition and figure out like, okay, for every, dollar that goes in, I'm getting $10 back. Every dollar that goes in, I'm getting $15 back. Okay. So those are the 5 sales numbers I want you to be tracking. And then we have our Guy. Anything else you want to add? Anybody have any questions? Because now we're going to kind of shift gears. Those were the sales KPIs. Now we're going to shift gears to the marketing KPIs. And Pedro, always nice to see you.
No, nothing to add. That was good.
Yeah, we have, and not really add to that per se, but I don't know if you can see behind us, we have this big old whiteboard. And for forever, since we've been working with you, we'd always keep up with our stats, our KPI type stuff and whatnot. And we got a little bit more in depth in terms of keeping up with stats. So I have a digital version, and I have a version that we keep on the wall that our core staff see, so that we track our monthly and quarterly revenue goals. And it's up in our face there. And then we have other numbers that we keep up with, our weekly meetings. We talk about how many signups we've had for different events that are coming up. And so that way we're tracking those kind of things as well. In addition to something new that we've done, is put up, at least for the first 6 months.
I told him about it.
Oh, you already went over that. Cool.
Yeah, I think Rob makes a really good point here, guys, is having those numbers right in front of your face all the time, right? What gets measured gets improved. And, I don't know if Melissa would be able to do something like this, because I don't know if that's like a public area or not. Like, you'd want to make sure that it's a private area. You don't want your students, right? That's their staff office. They're not having students come in there. So if you don't have that at your we have that in the office. Okay, awesome. If you don't have that capability in your school, then, wherever it is that you're working at home would be a great place. But you need to have it front and center. What, gets measured ultimately gets improved. And what I don't want you to do is like look at all the stats that Guy and Rob, and try to go from 0 to 100. Like, let's go from 0 to 10, right? And then we can go from 10 to 20 in terms of the amount of stats that we're tracking. So we're going to shift gears now, and we're going to go into some of the traffic stats, okay? So you need to know the number of leads that are coming in each month and what your cost per lead is. And your cost per lead is just going to be the amount of money that you've spent on marketing altogether divided by the amount of leads. So, if you spent, let's say, $2,000, and that ended up getting you, 95 leads, then you have a $21 cost per lead, okay? And if your lead count is less than 30 a month, if you're not at least getting 1 lead a month, you really need to look at what your marketing strategy is, okay? 1 lead a month is kind of the minimum amount of leads that I would want on a monthly basis. Guy, how many leads do you guys typically average each month?
Each month, on an average, I would say somewhere between 80 to 100. Right now, we're sitting at like 110, I think, 10 or something like that.
Okay. So, guys, if you're getting less than 1 at bat a day, you need to be looking at what your marketing strategy is. Okay. We use a traffic light system at GrowPro, and I think this is just kind of for you to understand what lead cost should be. And it really depends on the platform. If you're advertising on Facebook, you're typically going to get lower cost leads than if you're advertising on Google. And it's just because Google is intent based. If somebody's going on Google, they're searching for martial arts in Tampa, like they're ready to buy, versus Facebook is interest based and we're kind of planting the seed. But the color system that we use at GrowPro is if it's a $0 to $10 cost per lead, we call that a super green account. And that's really, really good. 10 to 20 is good. 20 to 30 is yellow. 30 to 40 is orange. 40 to 60 is red. And then anything over a $60 lead in the martial arts industry, we call WTF, which you can figure out what that means on your own. Out of all of our clients, about 2.7% of our clientele have WTFs, okay? So when you're looking at your cost per lead, you can kind of use this based off of the data of us running, literally millions of dollars in ad spend. If you're a lawyer and you're getting leads at 80, 90, 100, $150 a pop, you're probably really happy, but it's just due to the amount of money that a lawyer could make off of one single lead versus the amount of money that we could make, right? If you're tracking your lifetime value and you know that, hey, this lead could potentially turn into, $1,800, you might be willing to pay a little bit more for your lead. So you need to be tracking the number of leads and the cost per lead. Then the next one is the lead to appointment ratio. And if you're doing a free offer, it should be around 50 to 60% of the amount of leads that you're booking appointments. If you require people to pay money before they can come in and book an appointment, meaning they've got to like click on a link and purchase like a 4-week trial for $49, whatever you're doing, then your lead to appointment ratio is potentially going to be a little bit higher. In order to get the lead to appointment ratio, the follow-up on the timing is the most important, okay? Speed to lead is the name of the game. If you're running Facebook ads and a prospect clicks on your ad and gives you their information, guess what's going to happen the next time they go on Facebook? They're going to see your competitors' ads because they're now put into an audience of people that like to click on martial arts ads. So if they're, filling out a lead form for me and they're filling out a lead form for my competitor, I better make sure that I'm following up faster. Okay. So the follow up on the timing and the consistency is super important. The phone script that you're using, if you don't have some form of a phone script, which we've gone over in the past, like you need to, and I don't want somebody reading off of a script, but I want them to understand the concept of the script. Okay. And then you have your scheduling availability, right? If you don't have a lot of availability for new people to come in, it's going to be really hard to turn those leads into appointments. Okay. I did a full training on best practices for lead response management. Again, it's on the GrowPro website. If you feel like you're getting a good amount of leads, but not a good amount of appointments, my recommendation would be to watch this training. It will solve it for you. Okay. Next traffic stat is appointment to show. So the amount of appointments that we book, we want at least 70% to show. If you have a paid trial offer where somebody's got some skin in the game because they gave you money, then it should be higher than 70%. But if it's a free offer, 70%, there are lots of automations that you can leverage to help nurture that appointment and get them to show up. You should absolutely be making confirmation texts, confirmation calls. And if you're still struggling with appointments to show, then you might want to consider going from a free offer to a paid offer. Some of the things that we do when somebody books an appointment with us, they get this automated picture where the person's name shows up on this whiteboard. So it's custom to the prospect's name. It's kind of, just a really like wow factor. We also send them an automation to a welcome video, which is like a quick tour video that explains when they come in, what's going to happen. Because if I tell you when you come in, ABC is going to happen, and then when you come in and I fulfill on ABC, I've built trust with you. And that's what we need in order to convert them into a student. Okay. And then we also have like confirmation text. We do like selfie style confirmation text messages, which just feels less automated and feels more custom. Okay. Then you need to know your show to close. So out of all the people that are showing up, how many are you actually enrolling? You must be at 80%. Okay. Here's school owners tell me all the time, Chris, just get them in my doors and I'll close them. Well, what's your closing ratio? So for every 10 people that book an appointment, that show up, that do an introductory lesson or class or one-on-one, you need to be converting 80% of them. Okay. And if you don't have an actual process to do this, like an enrollment process where we talk about the student, we're talking about how our program teaches the specific benefit that they're looking for. We pre-frame the upgrade, and then we present our program and pricing options. It's going to be really hard for you to step out of that role if you're the one still doing it. Okay. If your close ratio is less than 80%, you also need to audit what the intro lesson looks like. One of the big mistakes I see a lot of BJJ schools make, and especially in their adult program, but I see it in the kids program as well, is they just stick them in a group class. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. Nothing's going to build rapport better than a one-on-one. I mean, it's just that is going to build the best rapport. But if you are going to stick them in a group class, you need to make sure that you have a specific process that makes that person feel really special and isn't going to make them feel completely like a fish out of water. I mean, anybody trying jujitsu the first time is going to feel like a fish out of water, but this is where you can assign storm team members or you can assign buddies in the class. You can have an assistant instructor pull them off to the side of the mat and go over some more beginner-friendly techniques. But you absolutely should be selling 80% of the people that show up for appointments, okay? I've got the 4-step enrollment process in here. It's got a breakdown of what each 4 of those steps look like that you guys will have access to. And then the other thing that I think is important to consider, Guy, you guys do a paid trial. What's your typical like bread and butter paid trial? I know you change the paid trial here and there, but what's the typical one that you do?
The typical one that we do throughout the year is 2 weeks for $59.
So 2 weeks for $59, okay? And one of the things that can happen, especially if you offer a free intro and then they decide not to sign up for 12 months, so you downsell them the trial, is not tracking the amount of trials that actually convert to new students, okay? And that should be at least 80%. And one of the things you can implement to help with this are progress checks. So when somebody comes in and they purchase the trial, that first class when they come in, you need to get them on the calendar. And you need to get them on the calendar for a progress check. And it's just exactly that. You are going to be checking them, like checking in on the progress that the child or the adult is making. And we use 3 questions for the kids. It's, asking the parent, how are you enjoying the program? Second question, how's Johnny enjoying the program? Third question is, can you see how over time we can help Johnny improve his confidence or increase his discipline? Okay. And when we get yes, 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 or yes, I'm enjoying it. Yes, Johnny's enjoying it. Yes, I can see the benefits over time. It's going to make the conversion from trial to actual student much more smooth. Okay. And the other things you want to make sure that you're building in is spotlighting and highlighting your students that are on trials, okay? Alex says, do you recommend an incentive to close within 24 hours? Yeah, we typically offer $100 off of their down payment. So if it was $199 down, we'll drop $100 off. You could incentivize them depending on, what your structure looks like with a free uniform, private lessons, a free parent night out, a free week of summer camp, but we'll typically do $100 off if they sign up within 24, 48 hours, their second class. If you do like a longer form trial, like a 4-week trial, then the incentive could be enrolling by the end of week 2. Okay. So those are the 10 steps. And you need to create a spreadsheet, guys, that have these 10 KPIs. This is an example of a spreadsheet that I used in my school. I also use it in the agency. So you'll have access to this. But the last thing I want to say on this before we open it up to any other questions is you need to be making 1 day a week your data-driven decision day. For me, that is Friday. I call it Finance Friday. If I tell you I do something, I do it. If you look on my calendar, every Friday, 9 a.m., you're going to see finance. Let's go to the next month. Finance, finance, finance. Every Friday, I'm looking at my stats and I'm looking at my numbers. You need to pick 1 day a week. It doesn't need to be longer than an hour. Just schedule an hour in. And then at the end of the week, instead of waiting, if you're only doing this monthly, then you're not able to make decisions and change the course of where your business is going because the month is already over. You need to be looking at this at a weekly basis. If by the end of week 1, you've had 2 leads for the month, what do you need to do? You need to get more marketing out there. But if you're not looking at this on a weekly basis, the end of the month's going to hit and you're going to look at it and say, oh, I had 12 leads for the entire month. What happened? What happened was you weren't looking at it on a month-to-month basis, okay? I said this earlier, What gets measured gets improved. This needs to be front and center. And I get it. You didn't open your jujitsu school to have to do math, to have to do spreadsheets, to have to track. But the schools that go from good to great are schools that make data-driven decisions and are tracking this. The most successful, the most wealthy people I know in my life have spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet in front of them. Okay. Guy, anything you want to add? And then we'll open it up to questions.
No, that was a fabulous job, Chris.
Oh, I thank you.